Hello everyone. I'm not sure if you're aware of the latest space news with the Elon Musk SpaceX program where they are planning to send a rocket to the moon. They've already sent Starman, the mannequin in a car, to Mars orbit, and now they're going to try and go to the moon and take someone with them and some private citizens. But I will show the clip with you and who they're going to bring. It's really hilarious. But here's something I found out a while back. I never made a video about it, but there's stuff floating around about the connection between Wernher von Braun and Elon Musk, with von Braun being the Nazi scientist, rocket scientist, invented the V-2 bomber, and then was transported during Operation Paperclip with a bunch of Nazi scientists to America and began helping us deceive the world. Well, if you don't know much about von Braun in his dying days, it's easy to hate him, because when I saw his little tombstone and saw that he had Psalms 19:1 on there, I thought, what a jerk, just putting it in her face, talking about the firmament. He knew about the firmament and had no clue that he sort of became a whistleblower and tried to warn us about some things, many of which are already happening, with the things that would happen before the alien deception, that they would have meteors and terroristic threats, and all of these reasons that we would need to weaponize space and create some sort of space force, which we are doing now. So all the things that he warned us about are happening. So if you were concerned about the validity of some of the things he said, given his evil past, a lot of them are coming true. We're seeing them on a regular basis. But the strange thing about SpaceX and the Elon connection, other than some of the hoaxes we've seen with SpaceX changing their live feed and all these different things, kind of proving and partnering. They also partnered up with NASA. People don't know that. They say, well, what goal would they have to deceive the world if they're just some private organization? They're not. They give the illusion of that, but they are in partnership and get funding from NASA or us. So it's definitely not some private citizen guy. He's trying to take on the whole Tony Stark persona, but it's just not working. And the Elon and von Braun connection is weird because Elon was supposedly born in 1971, whereas von Braun died in 77 when Elon was just a 6-year-old kid. But when you read this book, there's a book called Project Mars, and it was written by von Braun, and it has a plan to colonize Mars, and it's a science fiction book, and it talks about it, and he has lots of really cool illustrations. But the one thing that was strange in this book that was written in 1952 by von Braun, and the book's called Project Mars, but it says, Project Mars, which imagined that human colonists would be on Mars and led by a person called Elon. That's where I was like, holy crap, this rabbit hole just got really deep. Because what is Elon wanting to do? Go to Mars. What did von Braun know about? The game that was being played. So maybe putting out in his book the plan to colonize Mars, led by someone given the title to Elon, has something to do with this SpaceX program and their agenda to keep us living on an imaginary ball flying through space. So I thought that was very interesting. Never really shared that. I've just kind of been sitting on that for a while. But there's an article about it. You can read it, and they paint out von Braun to be a really cool guy who wasn't aware of all of the Jewish slaves working on his rocket. He was just a scientist. And I'm not going to judge him. I really don't know what his intentions were, but I do know that he was part of that regime. And there's a lot of things that went on you can read about, but that part of the book was really cool. But this video is to show you the latest with the BFR rocket that Elon is going to send to the moon. And it's quite laughable, and it's awkward, and it's forcefully thrown together because Elon, if you haven't been watching the news, has gone through some really awkward moments where he's been caught smoking weed on the Joe Rogan podcast, and just a lot of his failures are being pointed out. And I thought, well, wow, maybe he's just going to crash and burn. However, I think it probably has more of those rising from the ashes type of stories they're going to try to create, where look where he was a failure and now he's sending people to the moon sort of thing. I really don't know. The enemy is very crafty, And so I want to show you the footage though, just so you can see how laughable it is, and it's hilarious. And again, it looks like he had little time to rehearse what he was going to say. He expected a really big reaction from the crowd. That's just not what happened. It almost seemed like the people there are figuring out that it's all a lie. But just watch these clips and some of the things that he says. And again, it's awkward, it's hard to watch, so I apologize for that, but I sat through most of it, and hopefully you'll get some laughs out of it. Anyways, just check this out and enjoy.
The purpose of SpaceX, the reason for creating SpaceX, was to accelerate the advent of humanity becoming a spacefaring civilization, to help advance rocket technology to the point where we could potentially become a multi-planet species. There could be some natural event or some man-made event that ends civilization as we know it. It's important that we try to become a multi-planet civilization, extend life beyond Earth. And I do want to emphasize it's multi-planetary, not single planet but somewhere else. Not single planet but somewhere else. Have life on Mars, Moon, maybe Venus, the moons of Jupiter, throughout the solar system, and then ultimately extend life beyond the solar system to other star systems.
Earth orbit, that's the farthest that we can go. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually. The moon, Mars, the moon.
Kinds of technologies that we're testing out on space station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit.
A set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
So this is sort of an illustration of what it'd be like on Mars base.
So here's this little Mars base he puts out there, and I thought, wow, this looks familiar. Then I remembered it's eerily similar to the book written by von Braun. Strange coincidence, I don't know. But then you start looking at other things that von Braun drew up, like this rocket model here, or model rocket, and compare it to the SpaceX rocket. And wow, they look very similar as well. So crazy connections, but again, all of this stuff, I believe, is no coincidence. But before we go, let's listen to some funny answers as to why they sent a car to space in the first place, and exactly what they plan to do, and who they plan on sending to the moon. It's quite hilarious. You're probably going to laugh, but just listen to how they talk it up. It's funny.
Well, a lot of people don't understand why we sent a car to Mars. Obviously, that's a bit confusing. Why would you send a car to Mars? That's bizarre. But the real reason was we wanted to just have something that was fun and that people could identify with. And normally when a company creates a new rocket, they just launch a slab of concrete or something. And I was like, well, that's pretty boring. So we wanted something that was fun and that felt like you could maybe be there. And that was the reasoning behind the car and the astronaut in the car. Yeah, so this is the trajectory. So we'll take off, have booster separation, go into parking orbits, do a translunar injection, fly around the moon, and then come back and land. Yeah. That should take a few, basically about 4 or 5 days, and it'll be very exciting indeed.
Finally, I can tell you that I choose to go to the moon. Yeah. Ever since I was a kid, I have loved the moon. I choose to go to the moon with artists.
Yeah, he's very graciously offered to provide those seats to artists and cultural influences and like basically, key influences in society, and we better get that flight right. We're gonna definitely be doing everything we possibly can to make sure that is a good flight. But instead of 2, you can have a dozen, and probably not wise to have 100 on this flight, but we'll leave a lot of extra room for extra fuel and oxygen, sort of food and water, spare parts, just sort of just in case. If something goes wrong, like you have as much opportunity as possible for a recovery. I mean, this is a dangerous mission. But it's definitely dangerous. Yep.
Danger.
Yeah.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen,